Hey, what's up? Samuel Leeds here, and this is Q&A Sunday, where every single week I'm going to be answering questions which I'm reading in my YouTube comments. So if you haven't asked any of your questions yet, then comment below. Let's have a look at some of these questions that have been sent to me on YouTube. Okay, this is from Hollywood Kill 9. Does it make sense to come from Germany to one of your crash courses? Yes. I'm studying real estate industry in this second semester. I know that in Germany there are a lot of other formulas and rules that doesn't attach in the UK. So my question is, your crash course, is it specifically designed for Britain real estate market? I'm watching your videos now since 5 months. Keep on doing what you do. Greetings from Germany. You know what? Germany and England are quite similar. So we get people, on average, we get people from 17 countries represented at the crash course. So people flying from America, Australia, India, all over Europe. So of course there's going to be some things that are a little bit different, and it's your job when you're being trained to be able to say that applies to me, that applies to me, that could be a little bit different. But that's even the case in England. Like in London and in Birmingham, things are different. The economy's different, house prices are different. So yeah, Hollywood Kill 9, get down to the crash course. I think you will learn a ton. I know you'll learn a ton. And Germany is really quite similar. So just the general concept of houses and HMOs, and you know, it is quite similar. So yeah, hope that makes sense. Let's see what else we've got. Simon TV. I'm stuck on a 2-year no refinance mortgage. It was a first time buyer mortgage. I'm going to try and rent out as SA, but I do wonder how mortgage companies will perceive SA income when it comes to refinance to buy-to-let mortgage from my existing first-time buyer mortgage. Okay, it sounds like you're a little bit confused around mortgages. So a serviced accommodation mortgage is a different type of mortgage to a buy-to-let mortgage. So if you are buying a property with the intent to rent it out as serviced accommodation, you will need a particular type of mortgage to do that. It's a bit like if you're buying anything. If you're buying a property to live in, the bank will lend you money to buy that house to live in it. They need to know what the intent is of the house. So they'll give you a residential mortgage. If you're planning on buying it to rent it out, you'll need to get a loan, a mortgage, which is a buy-to-let loan. If it's going to be a HMO, the loan, the mortgage will need to be a mortgage as the property is a HMO. Same with serviced accommodation. Now, the problem is when you're fluid with your strategy, so you're saying you're refinancing it, you're wondering if you're going to do it as SA. If you're a bit fluid with your strategy, if you've bought it with the intent of living in it, but now you want to rent it, or you bought it with the intention of renting it, but now you want to do it as a serviced accommodation, you're going to either need to refinance it to a correct kind of mortgage, so get a new loan, a new mortgage, and just say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or tell them the situation and get consent. So if you own a buy-to-let property and you want to do it as service accommodation, just say to them, hey look, here's what I'm wanting to do, and sometimes they will give you consent to do that depending on how strict the mortgage company is. But Kent Reliance are very landlord friendly, so good luck, and hopefully that's helped. All right, let's see what else we got. Peach, I love some of these names. Hi mate, a bit of a random question. Would you go for an interest-only mortgage or a repayment? I'm 24 years old and unsure what to do. Any help would be much appreciated. I'd go with interest only. Definitely interest only, especially if you're young, because here's the thing. If you buy a property and you pay back the interest plus repayments, what's going to happen is you're going to sacrifice your monthly cash flow. And your number one incentive when you're starting out in property needs to be to become financially free. And the definition of financially free is to have a high cash flow each month. So you're much better off to have interest only, pay the absolute minimum payments on those mortgages, and then give yourself as much cash flow as you can. Then when you become financially free and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't need to work, and then what happens is you move to the next level, which is you begin to become a wealth builder, where you're trying to just grow your portfolio just kind of for fun. And at that point, if you want to start paying mortgages down, then by all means do that. Some people are worried about that because in their mind, they want to pay off the mortgage as fast as possible, but in my mind, that's stupid. You don't want to be debt free, you want to be financially free. So I hope that helps. Okay, maybe just one or two more questions. So I've had quite a few questions about lease option agreements. I've done some videos on lease option agreements. If you don't know what that is, click the link above and you can watch about what it is. So this person, Clarky Sam, says, what happens if you get a lease option agreement sorted for a house and then, say, 8 years later, the current owner of the house refuses to honour the agreed sale price? E.g., agreed to pay £100,000, then 8 years later, the owner has seen the house is now worth £140,000 and therefore does not want to sell at £100,000. Presumably, the option agreement is legally binding, so the current owner has little choice. Would it be prudent to offer a token gesture above the agreed price in order to avoid cost of fighting it through the courts, etc.? Okay, thank you for your question, Clarky Sam. Very, very straightforward. I've actually been in this situation whereby I have agreed to buy a property from an owner on a lease option agreement after X amount of years, and then they've tried to pull out when they've seen how much the house has increased. And if you've got it drawn up properly, they do not have a leg to stand on. So they can't pull out, and there's no court costs. They can't like, if they take you to court, they have to pay. To be honest, they won't even take you to court. They might think about taking you to court, but their solicitor will say, I cannot defend you because this is legally binding. So it's a fear that you do not have to fear unless you do not get the contract drawn up properly. And how do you get the contract drawn up properly? You need to have the seller legally represented by a solicitor when the lease option agreement is drawn up. And sometimes people get really confused about this because they think, oh, well, do I need a solicitor for rent to rent? And rent to rent is a bit different because you're not actually buying the house, you're just controlling it. Whereas with a lease option, you're actually buying it. So it's almost a buy now, pay later. So yeah, no, there's nothing the seller can do. You're completely safe. You have the option, not the obligation, but he has the obligation. So hope that clears things up. In terms of lease option agreements, there's another couple people that have said stuff. So we've had FIFA Vids for You say, why on the planet would any seller ever do a lease option? Lol. I get it's awesome for the buyer, but not for the seller. It has no positives. A lot of people have been saying this. They've been seeing some of the lease option agreements that I've been doing, securing with buyers, no money down, good cash flow each month. Why on earth would a seller possibly give you their house for free? And the answer is simple. The answer is that the seller does not want the property anymore. They're not interested in the money. They just don't want the house. And usually, there's no money in the house anyway. So negative equity properties are very common, whereby the value of the house might be 100. The mortgage outstanding on the house is 100. So if the seller sold it today for full market value, he'd have to use all the money to paying off the mortgage company anyway. So he's got no money in the property. It's all debt. So to someone like this landlord, passing it to you, where you buy it for £110,000, but in 5 years' time, is attractive to him. Now you might say, well, why doesn't he rent it out himself and then make the monthly cash flow? Well, the answer to that is he doesn't want to be a landlord. In fact, before I ever take on a lease option agreement, I always recommend that they rent it out themselves first and give them, the best advice for them. If they have different incentives and different inclinations and motivations and they don't want to be a landlord and they don't want the house, then I'll happily take it on for free on a lease option agreement and start benefiting from monthly cash flow and start benefiting from any capital appreciation that happens. So why would anyone do it? Because they don't want the money now, or they can't get the money now because they're in negative equity, and they don't want to be a landlord, and they don't want the hassle or stress of buying a house. So there we go, there we have it, it's a wrap. I want more questions, So if you have niggling questions about property, I want to know your current situation, I want to know what your question is, I want to know what your obstacle is, I want to help you. So please do comment below to this video with your questions, and I'll look forward to doing another Q&A Sunday next week.